Hi all, I have another interesting game for you. This is by Thomas Kaz, who recommended this game, calling it a nice positional game. So it's Leela ID 495 playing black against Gull. Gull is a top 15 ranked chess engine. Let's have a look at this game. B3, so Nimzovich Larsen attack from Gull. C5, bishop b2, knight f6. E3. If white took on f6, just in case you're wondering, black stands pretty well here actually. White has sacrificed that dark square bishop and left dark square weaknesses behind. In fact, black could fianchetto here and take control of d4 later. So that's not really worth doing overall, it seems. So e3 is played. We have e6, knight f3, and now Leela plays b6, d4, c takes, e takes, bishop b7, bishop d3, and now it's actually a very interesting decision here. You'd think d6 would be the natural follow-up to play bishop e7 and kind of hedgehog. In fact, Leela plays g6. Now, conventional wisdom indicates you don't want to weaken too many dark squares unnecessarily. So by fianchettoing here, it seems that pawn should be on e6. Interesting scenario. If d6 instead, then this position, black is going to be slightly worse in any case. It's quite comfortable for white. So by putting it, by fianchettoing, this is quite interesting. Knight bd2, black castles, bishop a3. Slight downside of these dark squares, they're hit, they're put under pressure. d6, knight c4, so knight e8. Leela's on the defensive here, but counters now. b5 kicking the knight, queen b6 protecting the b5 pawn, knight f6. Actually, black has quite a nice looking position, the flexible pawn center now. This looks as though it's pretty pleasant. a6, knight h5 with the idea of knight f4, g3. This creates some light square weaknesses, but if the knight can't really be tolerated here, this is just very pleasant for black. This position is just, black has a nice advantage there. So g3, a necessary evil move, knight f6, knight d2, queen c6, threatening mate in 1, queen h1, checkmate, not queen g2 because the knight's on g2. f3, so even more weaknesses created by Gull. Pawns do not move backwards. We have b takes a4, rook takes, queen c7, b4. It seems as though Leela has a target herself, this a6 pawn. Rook e8, knight b3. Now e5, this does seem a pretty nice move to try and crack open the e file and expose these weaknesses. D takes, and now rook takes, keeping the rook active on the e file. Nice pin. Knight a5, knight bd7, not concerned about losing the light square bishop. Knight takes, queen takes. So immediately things like rook a to e8 are threatened here. Queen f2 unpinning with urgency. Rook e7 is played here, getting out of the firing line of potential c4. Bishop c1. We have h5 here. Rook a3, knight e5, hitting the bishop. The bishop retreats. d5. So let's take stock here. It seems just Leela's in a very comfortable position at this point. White's c-pawn is backward. There's pressure potentially on the light squares generally, and maybe even h4 at some point. Rook d1, knight c6. Pardon me. Bishop f1, rook goes to e8 here, so the rooks protect each other. Rook a4, and the point of that now, a5, so undermining this pawn chain. b5, knight e5, king h1, knight ed7, king g1, knight b6. Now the rook gets actually misplaced here. Rook h4, this does seem a misplacement of the rook. Not only that, Leela has a protected outside pass pawn now, which is pushed. So a4, c4 is played though. Is this of a concern? D takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Rook ad8, rooks come off. Bishop g5. a3, this is really quite a dangerous passed pawn. We have rook d4, trying to parry things. So this rook invading on d1 is also a pain. So a pair of rooks come off. The rooks come off, but at the cost of a pawn. And this end game, after queen f4, Leela plays actually queen e4, which might be more accurate than queen takes f4. Because this position, well, it's still nice for black. Black has a nice advantage holding against white's b pawn. But this actually might be more accurate. Queen e4, bishop takes. This opposite coloured bishop and pawn ending is interesting. Yeah, if the pawn had moved, then bishop d4 check wins that pawn. We have a blockade on that pawn. So a 3-2 pawn majority and a blockade square and an outside a pawn as well. So Leela gets on with trying to use the pawn majority a bit there. h4, we have bishop b8, keeping an eye on that f4 pawn, tying down the white king. The king comes to blockade the b pawn. So king c5, tying down white a bit more, and actually winning material. Yeah, if the bishop moves back on this diagonal, then a2 is queening. So white's actually being totally outplayed here, losing another pawn. It's all over by the shouting. So this pawn's taken, yes. Gull has been completely outplayed in this endgame. The pawns are just far too much now. It's pretty much technique. And Leela crashes through with f3 soon. It's adjudicated here as a win for black. So yeah, a nice positional game from Leela Chess against that Nimzovich Larsen attack system. So quite fascinating positionally nuanced play. And it may be like a strange decision to fianchetto, you might think, and allow the pressure on the diagonal. But seeing beyond that, maybe it wasn't such a big deal. Black stood well overall, it seemed, especially on this diagonal. And other aspects like the potential for the knight to come to f4. So quite interesting game there. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.